under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
George, would you call the roll?
Sure thing. Cindy Charney. Chuck Lewis.
Here.
Charles Fisher.
Here.
Greg Trader. Alex Rodriguez. Dan Van Wyck. And myself, George Needles, present.
Okay, as we get started this evening, I'd like to open up the meeting by welcoming everybody who's here, and we'll open up the mics for public comment. So if anybody from here over would like to comment, just raise your hand. Okay, could you step up to the mic, please? It's up here at the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Hello. My name is Michael Whitaker. I live in Twin Oaks, 2323 Booker Street, Twin Oaks, Pennsylvania. I wanted to talk about some kind of safety of the 95. I live right down there off of, I live in Booker Street, but on Thomas Avenue, this Sun Oil has all these pipes going underneath of the 95. And it seemed like they just built a concrete barrier, like maybe I think 4 foot by 4 foot concrete piece there. But then in the middle of the 95, there's a little small dip in the ground. It just seemed like it's so dangerous that all these accidents they keep having, that if they could just put some kind of sound barrier or a shield along the 95, you would have to see it. But right there, I mean, I keep seeing this plane every day or every other day. It's riding up and down the pipeline. And it just seemed like it's been a lot of accidents. I mean, not every day, but, you know, right along 95. And if one of those come and hits the middle of 95, do they have some kind of turnoff valve? Oh.
The township itself, code enforcement is zoning recognition for those people.
Okay.
It's you know, like there's some type of new movement in the township. Thank you for looking at that. In terms of safety issues, I'll talk to George about that. Dan, what I'll do is in this matter, we're getting ready to try to schedule a meeting with our new state representative that'll be representing all of Upper Chichester going forward.
Okay.
So this would be something that would fall under like the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation.
Right.
And then the pipelines are regulated under the PUC. So this would be stuff that we would bring to them as concerns from the community. So I can absolutely bring this to them.
Well, I'm sorry I spoke at the wrong place.
No, but now it's good that you brought it up, because now we can direct you to where the right place is.
I mean, it's very dangerous. I mean,
And George is here, so he's heard what you had to say as well. So, you know,
Okay.
it's part of the record. All right. And George will take that forward for you.
hey, thanks, George. Like I said, thanks.
Anyone else like to make any public comment about anything? Again, we need your name and your address for the record.
My name is Tyrone Small. I live at 33 Washington Avenue, Twin Oaks, Pennsylvania. Across from me, between 101 Washington and 32 Washington, there is around a 34 and 36 inch pipe that, if a child falls into it, would drag them down to the Delaware River. I think it's something that the township have known for a while, but I don't think they have put anything as far as a grate or even enclosing that pipe from Washington to Broadway to prevent anyone from being injured during a flood. So in your planning, I hope that you're planning to do something about that before we lose a child. It's big enough to take an adult down from Washington to the Delaware River. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And again, that is not an issue that would normally be handled by the Planning Commission, but it is on the record, and George has heard it, and it will be a similar information item that he'll share with the appropriate authorities. Okay? Yes. This is being broadcast, so you have to be on your microphone.
Now, you guys, when the person is building something brand new, this is who you represent, or you're?
Generally speaking, when someone wants to develop something or change something that requires, under the ordinance, that they ask for permission before they do such, they come to the Planning Commission, in general speaking.
Okay. Yeah, because somebody was telling me maybe, what's this vegetable place up here wants to move where, the Meeting House Tavern is. They wanted to move there. You would be the one that would be able to tell them they could move there?
Not necessarily if they're moving to somewhere. All right, that would be whether they're moving somewhere that in the zoning is appropriate for where they're moving.
I mean, it's probably commercial. So,
All right, well, George can help you with that too. That doesn't sound like a Planning Commission issue.
And I'm not the lawyer, so maybe Dan can jump in as well. But the Planning Commission, typically what they handle is anything that would be covered under the regulations of the township's subdivision land development ordinance. So currently, your property is owned. It has boundaries. It has 4 lines and says that I own this property here, here, and here. So sometimes people say, well, I'd like to buy the property next to it and consolidate it into one lot. Or I have a large property and I'd like to break it up into a bunch of different lots. That's something that requires a level of approval by the local municipality. This board would need to hear that case before it goes in front of the Board of Commissioners to kind of hear it out and vet it out to make sure that it's in compliance with all the applicable laws. The other thing is if someone wanted to develop a commercial property. So that means that they want to either raise the building structure. So for instance, in the example of the Meeting House Tavern property, if someone came in and said, I want that property, but I don't want the building there, I want to build a new building on that property, they would need to make an application for a land development project. That would come in front of this board. The other would be for residential developments. Any residential developments over you can build 2 properties without going through land development. Anything over 3 homes being built would need to go through the same process. It's an application process with a set of rules and regulations that the individual who owns the property or the developer would have to comply with. It gets reviewed by various professionals through the township, and then it gets vetted by this board. And then this board gives an opinion to the Board of Commissioners as to whether they feel it is in the best interest of the community based off of the various laws that the township has in the plans.
okay.
Okay?
That's a better explanation of
All right.
All right, moving right along on the agenda. Have nominations for the following positions. And just for the general public's purposes, each year when the Planning Commission meets for the first time at the beginning of the year, they have to reelect their officers. And that's what we're going to be doing right now. So I'd like to hear a nomination for chair from the floor. Guess we're not going to have a chair. Okay. We have a second for that. All in favor?
Aye.
I guess that means I'm going to be chairman again next year. Okay. I'd like to have nomination for the following position, vice chair.
I'll make a motion to nominate Chuck Lewis for vice chair.
Motion's been made in second. Any other motions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Chuck. Welcome. Now, on our agenda, we have nominations for secretary. Hear any nominations for secretary? Hearing none, we will not have a secretary, which is consistent with how we've been formed for the last several years. Okay. Moving on to the agenda, I'd like to have approval for the minutes from the November and December Planning Commission meeting. All in favor? Aye. Minutes have been approved. Now we have a presentation from 6659 Conchester Highway, McDonald's Land Development Application Presentation. State your name for the record, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Leonard Altieri. I'm an associate at the law firm of Claire Harrison in Center City, Philadelphia. I am the attorney representing McDonald's USA LLC tonight with regards to their application for the property located at 659 Conchester Highway. On a personal note, I started out on the planning commission of my township, so congratulations to those who were just reelected.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tonight with me, I have this project engineer, Mary Bockert, from Bowler, who will be presenting most of this testimony tonight, as well as Eileen Seeberger, who is from McDonald's. Both of them will be available for any questions should the planning commission have. Just to give a little bit of a roadmap of how we're going to do this tonight, I'm going to give a very high-level overview of the project, where it's located, where we are with regards to it. And then, as I said, the civil engineer will then get into the technical details. And then at the end of tonight, we'll be requesting a recommended vote from this commission so we can move forward to the Board of Commissioners.
Let me interrupt you just for a second. Just for the purposes of the audience, I think you're all familiar with what our current McDonald's is located right on Conchester Highway. All right. They are planning to move across the street into Larkins Corner. And that's what this presentation is about. Okay. Just so you're aware. Go ahead.
You're very correct, Mr. Chairman. Again, just to orient everyone, this is the shopping center that currently houses the Walmart and the Acme. It is zoned in the industrial commercial district. The building that we will be occupying, that we will be demolishing, is the existing Taco Bell that you can see on the mouse right here. That overall property is 24.224 acres. The leased area that McDonald's has is around 1.088 acres, or around 47,405 square feet. As I alluded to, the McDonald's area is going to be where the existing Taco Bell is located. And as the chairman noted, we're essentially moving on the other side of Conchester Highway. We will be demolishing the Taco Bell and constructing the new McDonald's restaurant, complete with a side-by-side drive-through lane, which is consistent with McDonald's modernization plan. We have had multiple conversations with the township, and so the plan that you're going to see is one that has been developed after intense negotiations, or intense, I should say, multiple negotiations, and zoning relief was granted by the zoning hearing board back in December. I will note that tonight we are requesting two waivers from the SALDO. The first one is section 505-32A1, which is to waive the requirements to install a sidewalk along the property abutting Conchester Highway. The reason for that is, as we all know, Conchester Highway will be getting improved with PennDOT. There is plans to raise that elevation. And so, we don't think it's wise to put in that sidewalk when it's just going to be ripped out in a few years. The second one is from section 505-16B7 to waive the requirement to show the existing facilities on the property within 200 feet, such as your sanitary lines, your water lines, your fire hydrants. The area is already developed. It is well documented what facilities are on there. And so we're requesting a waiver from that. Again, the civil engineer will go into greater detail with that. And I will note in the engineer's review letter, he did speak in favor of the first waiver and didn't really opine on the second one so much. As I just alluded to, we are in receipt of a review letter from the engineer from Catania Engineering. Please note that all of the comments that are on there will be a will comply. We will comply with everything that's on there. And again, as I said in the opening of this statement, at the conclusion of this presentation, we will be requesting a recommended vote so that we can move on to the Board of Commissioners. If there's any questions for me, I'll entertain them now. If not, I'll turn it over to our civil engineer and allow her to take it. So I'll ask that. If anybody has any questions. No?
Not at this time.
All right. So before Mayor gets in there, a packet was just distributed to everyone. The packet, just an overview is we have the aerial photo and all this for the members of the public that are here and for those watching online. We'll scroll through it. It's also what you see currently on the screen, an aerial photo, the title survey, the Bowler plan, which is the main plan for this project, our lighting plan, the signage plan, our building renderings, and similar side-by-side photos. When we get to the building renderings, please note that the signage you see on there is not accurate to what will be on this building. We're just trying to show you what the model building looks like today, or will look like when it's constructed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mary Bockert with Bowler Engineering. As mentioned, I am the civil engineer on this project. Without being overly redundant here, just high level of the image that we're looking at. If you can see the screen here, this is the site we're proposing to relocate to. This is the existing McDonald's. And rather than remodel the existing facilities up to current modernization standards, McDonald's is looking to build a brand new proto building of their most updated style with a side-by-side drive-through, which is more efficient for driveway operations. Scroll down. This is just a copy of the existing conditions survey, overall site plan, and then here, if we zoom in a little bit here, we can look at the proposal. So here is the proposed site plan. Let me get it centered for everyone so we can see what we're. Turn it up, or I'll speak up for you. Is that better? Sorry. Okay, let's give that a shot. How's this? Any better? Okay, perfect. So what we're looking at here is the proposed McDonald's. So it's actually a 90 degrees different orientation that the Taco Bell was at. If you'll remember, the Taco Bell was over here lengthwise along this main entrance to Larkin's Corner. So we will be parallel to Conchester Highway with a dual lane drive-through. So 2 stacking lanes coming into 2 order points and then narrowing down to a single pickup operation. We are relocating this access aisle. And so we're making a little bit more room on the site and increasing this throat distance here for the internal circulation for the shopping center. Improvements will include landscaping, updated lighting package, site amenities, and the like. So enlargement of the drive-through if anyone is curious. This is the utility plan. Unless anyone has any questions, look at that. And then here's the landscaping plan. So where I mentioned we're relocating the islands from the prior access drive, we are replacing those plant materials, the trees within those islands, and then complying with the township landscape ordinances for on-site landscaping and screening around the trash enclosure. And then here's just our truck turns, which show the pickup of the refuse truck, the fire truck making the required movements, and then the delivery operations for the McDonald's restaurant. The lighting plan, and then our signage plan. So the signage did already go to the zoning hearing board and the package is fully approved. And as was mentioned, here's the prototypical images. So the signage does not necessarily match our site. The parking spaces may not match our site and the landscaping, but it'll give you an idea of what the materials, finishes, and colors look like of the current McDonald's buildings. I'm sure you've all seen them popping up over the past 3 to 5 years. So this is the most modern building. And then this is our elevation. So this actually is for our building, just not colorized, so not as fun to look at. More accurate. Does anyone have any questions about anything that I've gone over?
Make sure you turn your mic on.
I do have a few questions.
Sure.
After the last presentation, I did go to McDonald's at lunch one day when I was working from home. And the queue for the drive-through circled the building and the overflow went out onto Bethel Road. What would the overflow here be like? And where would it end up if it did as I experienced?
So the
Circled
whole,
the entire building plus.
they do
maybe-
get crazy, and that's why we're switching to these dual lane drive-throughs. So it's particularly during the pandemic, McDonald's saw an uptick in drive-through operations. And so the new initiative now is not only to have the dual order points, but you'll see this has dual stacking lanes. Very often, all we can get in is a single stacking lane splitting around an island to 2 order points, and then a single pickup window. So with the dual stacking lanes and the dual pickup, not only does it hold almost twice as many cars, but everyone moves through the operations a lot quicker because the kitchen is laid out more efficiently in these new buildings. And then with the dual order points, they move through much more efficiently. So you should not see as much stacking in general because cars are moving more efficiently through the restaurant. But there is also a lot more on-site room here than there is across the street. So I don't project that, we haven't done a queue study or anything, but I can't imagine that it would be anywhere near what it's like across the street.
Okay, thank you. Now, the berm between the 2 drive-through lanes, what's the elevation on that? Is that flat or?
It's not a berm, so it's just a curved landscape island like you'd see around any parking spaces. And what that is really just to protect the drive-through equipment from vehicles. So everyone's moving at very low speeds in here when they're pulling up, and it's just to protect the equipment.
But there's no ability to move from the inner lane
Oh, no.
out.
Correct. Yeah. If you want to get out of the drive-through, you have to change your mind before you get to the order point. So you can still, as we say, you could bail out from here.
And those parking spots on the lower right section, yeah,
Yes.
they have to walk across the drive-through lanes to get into the building.
So
I mean,
the door,
in reality, what people would do.
the doors are down here. These are not open to the public. They are delivery doors, so they don't even get into the main part of the restaurant. So very likely they're going to come down to this crosswalk.
Is there a sidewalk where those delivery doors are located?
There's
I mean-
concrete around 3 sides of the building, yes, but this is for loading operations. The truck actually pulls up here and stands for 15 minutes or so while they have palletized deliveries. So they have like a big fork jack that they roll pallets straight into these doors.
Okay, I was just thinking of it from a safety perspective. People getting out of their cars to cross over to the building they're going to go directly across the drive-through lanes, it looks like.
I mean, the desire line is you're going to want to aim for your door. So yes, obviously you have to get across the lanes of traffic, but people are more likely to be aiming down here than they are to aim this part of the sidewalk. Also, it's a high vis, continental style crosswalk. So it should be easily identified where to cross. I was only give so much guidance, right?
Okay, I just wanted to understand that better.
Absolutely.
My last question has to do with the design of the building, the exterior. Once Route 322, the widening project is completed, Chelsea Parkway, which is adjacent to the shopping center, will be the ramp for 322 on
Okay.
and off for Upper Chichester Township. And McDonald's is going to be more or less a centerpiece.
Mhm.
to this gateway. And to be perfectly honest, I was wondering if there were any other building styles available, because this is like a brick box. Is there anything more visually appealing available?
So I will say that probably this doesn't do an amazing amount of justice when you're just trying to see what the finishes are. But it is a mix of, yeah, generally what Eileen Hardy plank and brick, and there's 3 or 4 different types of finishes mixed on it. I don't know which package has been.
So I understand your sustainability concerns. Are there any other prototypes available, or is this the only one that McDonald's is currently building?
This
Thank
one
you.
does look much nicer in person, I will say.
Okay, I'll believe
I
you.
think there may be pictures.
I see.
If
Thank you.
If you look in the packet too, that was distributed, the last couple pages are actually photos of a side-by-side drive-through with the modern equipment. It's not a great shot of the building, but you can see some angles that show actually what those material finishes look like. Last, number 7. You can see the Hardy plank on the back here and the battens. Absolutely.
Anything?
What are you gonna do with the old lot,
Pardon me, I can't.
the old property?
At this point, I don't know what the plans are. Obviously, at a minimum, it will be debranded and the property will be marketed.
So it's just gonna be left as an abandoned property?
It will be
Until it falls
maintained per the
down?
requirements of the ordinances. I don't know what the long-term plans are, whether it will be demolished or marketed as an existing building.
And how long will it sit and deteriorate before maybe it gets demolished?
It's not going to deteriorate. I mean, McDonald's it'll be continued to be upkept. They're not going to, as Mary said, in conformity with the ordinances. I mean, we're not going to walk away from it and allow, it to look like an eyesore in the sense of, anything contrary to what the ordinances are. But with regards to the other question, I don't know if there's really an answer to it, because we can't say how long it'll stay on the market until someone buys it. But if we look at just what the commercial real estate is today, things are selling left and right. So there's no real answer to that, except for we're going to continue to maintain it up to the ordinance standards. And that's what we would be required to do.
Have there been any discussions whatsoever since, I mean, you're moving now, but been discussions with PennDOT as far as taking the property?
PennDOT is already taking portions of the property. I don't know that there's been discussions on the bulk of the property, but part of the decision to relocate was because a significant portion was being taken as part of the improvements there that would limit the ability to make these improvements on that site, because we do need a larger area.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Greg?
So with regards to the dual accesses to do orders and stuff like that. Isn't there a choke point at which when cars go into both lanes and they get their orders and stuff? It's kind of like Chick-fil-A. You know, you ever sat in a long line at Chick-fil-A because the cars are getting
Yeah.
jammed in together, and you just have like one window for them to,
Yeah.
I guess, pick up their food or whatever. So that concern. And the other is there a way for, like, if somebody changes their mind when they're in there after they've gone through the order windows or whatever, to go around? Is it going to be wide enough for if somebody changes their mind, they can go around?
So I will answer your first question with the dual lane drive-throughs. So McDonald's has this down to a science, and what you'll see here is called the merge point. So this triangle here, it's a paint marking, which serves as a visual cue for basically where the vehicles are going to start merging.
Right.
They'll merge like they do in any other drive-through. However, in the kitchen, they do have technology monitoring which vehicle is ahead of each, and the orders are in the correct order. So it's not like they have the wrong order ready to pick up and people are getting each other's food and slowing it down. Also, from speeding up operations, if there was a slowdown for an order, this model building does come with the third pickup window. So the third pickup window is not actually part of the kitchen, but what they'll do is, say the fries are in the fryer and somebody needs to wait for that, rather than making the rest of the line wait, they'll have you pull up to the third window. Kitchen staff will come out to that window and they can pass it directly to you, just like they would from a kitchen window. This allows the drive-through to operate at regular efficiency without being held up by that waiting order. Additionally, this new layout does have pull forward spaces, which serve a similar purpose. So in the event that multiple people were looking to get out of the way, they could direct you to one of these spaces, and staff would come outside via the sidewalk and they'd bring your food to the car.
Okay. And like Cindy, I too think that at the 2023, you guys could come up with some better designs than just the two that you seem to settle on. I've been in other parts of the country where I've seen McDonald's that are pretty stylish.
So it is a prototypical location. When you see one-offs, it's because of like a very strict ordinance. Like in Sedona, if you're familiar with that one, they aren't allowed to have certain colors, and it is the only location that has a teal M because that is an approved color by Sedona. But beyond that, very infrequently do the prototypes vary. So we do have two different color packages on the exterior, and then on the interior, there's maybe 3 or 4 interior fit out packages, 6 decor packages.
Size of the building, right? Whether you want to make it a little bit larger or a little bit smaller, depending on the sales, but other than some select finishes, that the franchise choose. I mean, for McDonald's, right? It's lemon brand. We used to have the Mansfield fruit. Since, you know, they really started the whole upgrade. Those red Mansfield fruits.
Okay. Also about the sidewalks. I know you don't want to put in sidewalks and then have them ripped up when PennDOT does that part of the plan. After PennDOT is done with their part of the project across that area, then what's your thoughts about putting
They're
inside?
installing sidewalks. So it's on their PennDOT plans. So it wouldn't make sense for us to put in sidewalk.
That's true.
In 2 to 5 years, they're going to lift this intersection 5 feet, and then
Right.
they're going to put in new sidewalks.
And then you plan to come back and do something there, or what is your plans after they're done with it?
PennDOT is putting in
Okay,
sidewalk.
so they'll take care of that.
Yep, it's on their
Okay.
plans.
That's fine. I don't have anything else.
And then just to get back to the second question that you had, the 2 lane drive through here. So obviously, if they order but they change their mind, you could get out of line, just like you would in any drive-through, but you're not trapped in the site. So there is a bypass lane, which is what this circulation lane is here. So you don't have to either immediately leave. You can recircle the building if you decide you want to park and come in. And there's also 2 access points. So full access here and full access down here into the main shopping center drive. Is that what you were asking about, getting out of the drive-through?
Yes, people being able to exit entirely if they just don't want to sit in the. And also, is this a 24/7 operation?
Hours on this location.
Will be the goal. Nothing else. Nothing further at this time.
And as mentioned, we are requesting 2 waivers. Were there any questions or discussions about the 2 that we are asking for, from the 200-foot existing features to be shown on the plan or the sidewalk across the frontage?
I'd like to defer to the township engineer for his comment. I know you made some mention in your response, but I'd like to hear from him.
The other additional item that I would like McDonald's to maybe put in for consideration is that if the planning commission and commissioners decide to give the waiver for the sidewalk on 322, that perhaps they could provide a fee in lieu for that funds that would normally be involved in installing that, and perhaps that can be utilized by the township to make some public sidewalk improvements near a ball field or some other community area that is in need of some sidewalk. Some thought of a concept for when you grant a waiver, to maybe see if there's a way to at least have funds put in a fee in lieu to cover that.
Well, I noticed that there was a discussion in your or at least in the package itself, that they are providing for a fee in lieu based on their square footage with
For the-
respect to,
Open space and recreation, yes.
Yes.
That's another, right, that would be a separate,
right, so I understand that they have already provided for that. I like your suggestion with respect to the substitution for the sidewalks for additional monies for possible funds or recreation or whatever for the township to use at whatever purposes. I don't know. What's the rest of the board think?
I think it's reasonable.
That makes sense.
Chuck, do you have any ideas?
No, that's really.
I can, and I respect the somewhat decision that the planning commission already started to make. The argument that we would make with regards to the fee in lieu of is the township is getting the sidewalk. It's not like no one's going to be getting that benefit. So the argument we would make is that, yes, while it might not be coming out on from McDonald's bottom line, the township is still getting the benefit that is going to be conferred to it by having that sidewalk installed once PennDOT's done doing their expansion project. So I would like to just, and again, I think the decision has already been made by the planning commission, but just to highlight that fact. Outside of that, if the planning commission is so inclined to continue to move forward with requiring a fee in lieu of, again, based off of the aforementioned benefit that the township is going to be receiving, we would ask that it essentially be a de minimis amount, one that we can negotiate with the township, and one that we can all be, that we can find mutually acceptable among the parties.
I think that's a reasonable request. I don't know. How's the rest of the board feel?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I am as well.
Okay. Any other things?
the waiver for the existing features within 200 feet. I think that they do actually have enough information that, putting that waiver request, is reasonable also, because we don't really need any more additional information to make sure that the sanitary and stormwater facilities are going to operate properly. So the waiver for that is definitely a reasonable option that the board, that the planning commission could make a positive relief for the commissioners to understand.
And all other matters that were mentioned in the initial letter will comply. And therefore, you're satisfied with the responses with respect to this?
Yeah, I trust that all the stormwater items that, yeah, we can make sure that they can comply with that. Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman, if I can just ask for clarification. So with regards to the fee in lieu of, when we all said that was reasonable, I just want to get a little bit of confirmation. Reasonable of waiving the fee in lieu of, since PennDOT will be installing those sidewalks, or was it reasonable in the sense of coming to a mutual agreement with the township? on
The latter.
All right. I had to ask.
No, but that's fine. But I think that's what the board, as we just discussed, believe that's appropriate. So I think we'll do that. And the actual amounts and whatnot will probably be determined to the satisfaction of the applicant and the developing parties and the township. And I think we can recommend a discount.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, there's no public comment at this time. Anybody else on the board have any? All right, well, we have before us a preliminary final with respect to the property at 659 Chichester Avenue, without exception, except for the two waivers that were just recently discussed. One dealing with sidewalks, the other dealing with notification for utilities and whatnot. I have a motion to approve that with the stipulation that we believe a negotiated amount for fee in lieu of should be considered by the board, but otherwise approved by us with respect to the application.
I'll make a motion to approve the application with the waiver for the sidewalk and to not require them to show the existing facilities within 200 feet, but the sidewalk waiver subject to fee in lieu of to be negotiated.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. We just approved your application and we wish you well on your endeavor. And we will recommend to the board of commissioners to approve accordingly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And that is all that we have. We look forward to continuing to be a good community partner with Upper Chichester. So
Thank you very much.
Take care. Thank you, George. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, we have nothing else on our agenda other than other comments by people on the board here. Start with Cindy.
Thank you. I do have some other business regarding, well, what started it was the development plan for 4800 Chichester Avenue, what we know as the Hanby Farm. The question came up about the barn that's on the site. Upper Chichester has a historic preservation ordinance, and the owners of the property applied for a demolition permit to remove the barn, to raise the barn. And there's been some controversy over whether or not the barn was historic. And it relates to the wording that was used in the historic site survey. The survey relates back to the preservation ordinance because it relies on the survey to determine what's a historic structure and subject to the requirements of the ordinance. What was determined that the barn was not a historic structure because it was referred to as a modern barn in the survey, part of the historic site survey. And so in response to that controversy, I contacted the Pennsylvania State Historic Preservation Office. And I spoke to the Eastern Regional Coordinator, Megan McNish, and expressed our concern. She understood why the solicitor considered the barn to be not a historic structure. But what happened was the original barn burned in around 1917, and it was reconstructed on its original foundation within a year or so, actually within months. At the time the survey was done in the early 1980s, the barn was only 60 some years old. And the planner who prepared the survey referred to it as a modern frame barn, which at the time it could have been. But fast forward, we're in 2023 and the barn's more than 100 years old. It is part of a historic farm. It's the single and only remaining barn in the township. And so in reality, it is a historic structure, but because the survey said modern and the ordinance relies on the survey to identify historic structures, it is subject to be demolished. So I talked to Megan about my concerns, and she volunteered that the state has planning grants, the Keystone Historic Preservation grants. And I brought copies for everyone on the board. You can read them at your leisure. But one of the planning grants,
In his bin.
one of the
Oh,
planning,
wait a minute. Maybe not.
if you turn to page 6, one of the categories of grants is for cultural resource surveys. And essentially, that's the survey that our ordinance currently relies on. But it's clear based on the language in the original survey and the time that's elapsed, the 40 years, that it probably makes sense for us to update the survey. And the state offers grants to do that from $5,000 to $25,000. So Megan offered to come out and talk to the township, the planning commission, the historical society, board of commissioners, whoever would be interested, to talk about the grant, the application process, eligibility requirements, all of that. There's other grants as well. I'm not sure they would be applicable, but I wanted to discuss the possibility of having her come out and do a presentation and get everyone's thoughts on that.
I personally would like to read this, but my comment would be that I see nothing wrong with asking them to come out. I don't know what it would be like with respect to timing of anything that is currently in process with respect to the property and whether or not we can do a order to stop the presses. We're not going forward type thing here.
Yeah, no, let me be clear on that. This no longer has to do with the Hanby Farm. It's about all the remaining sites, to update the surveys for each one of them. We can add sites through the process, and we have with the Delaware County Planning Commission, where we started out with, 70 or 80 sites in the original survey. We're up over 100. Now 30 of them have been demolished in the 40 years since, but the update would include reviewing the existing sites and adding new sites.
Thank you for the clarification. I for one, have no problem with participating in that type of a review or a request. I don't know if anybody else, George?
Yeah, Cindy, so those types of plans typically last like maybe 10 to 15 years due, because every decade, history changes, right? So, I mean, it's prudent that it gets updated because it's definitely, we could justify that it's out of date at this point. The last mention to it is in the 2005 comp plan as well. So again, still 15 years, more than 15 years has expired since then. So I think what would go a long way is two things. A letter from the Historical Society asking the township to endeavor that this plan be updated. And then also just there's limited resources for managing that type of project. I know for right now, we have a full slate of projects going on this year that were planned from last year, but we're in the process of figuring out what's going to be next year's plans. So it would make sense to apply for the funding now to do the project next year. So any level of support from the Historical Society to sit on like the task force or anything like that would go a long way.
Thanks for that, George. The one thing I would say is we're currently in the grant period and it closes March 1st. So I thought that might be too much pressure to try to apply for the grant in 2023.
I think we can.
Oh, okay. That's
So
really good
if you can
news.
get the letter in, like if I could get a letter before the next board meeting, we can push that because I believe we have enough material in our plans and our comp plan and some of the plans we did to kind of spur the conversation and to do a good application for that.
Great. I'll work on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cindy. Greg? We'll go to Chuck.
I don't think anything additional.
Okay. Well, I'll hold you in abeyance for a second. I'm going to take a shot right here. We're in the process now of we'll be putting together a report to the Board of Commissioners for what we've accomplished in the year 2022. And one of the resources that we use to help compile that report are the monthly minutes that we have taken every meeting and vote to approve every meeting. Right now, those minutes for the last year anyway consist solely of the transcripts that we receive at the end of the meeting after they've been recorded and reduced down to a printable form for us. When we sit and try to review what we've done for the year, that requires us to go through 12 reports that, Maria, you might be able to tell us how many pages. They're generally somewhere around 50 to 80 pages or something like that. It's a lot of reading for 12 months to review, to come up with the highlights of what's happening. In the past, we had summary reports that we did religiously every month. And in the past, it had been my experience that I would sit with one or more parties to put those reports together. And I would like to suggest that we start doing that again. All right. Don't need a vote or anything else like this. It's just something like I would like to see us put summary reports together by compiling our own personal notes to supplement what we're getting so that in the future, should we have to look back on any particular month or occurrence, we can look to the executive summary, so to speak, to at least zero in on where we need to focus to find the information we're looking for. So I guess just a voice agreement or disagreement or further discussion on doing that?
I agree with it. It would be much easier to compile the annual report with summary notes instead of having to go through the multi-page documents every month.
Chuck?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you. So, we can start doing that after today's meeting. I'll be the lead, at least for this first attempt to put a little summary together. Or the secretary that we don't have, but since nobody volunteered to nominate anybody, we don't have one. Greg?
Yeah, so I just want to get on the record that we have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 folks from Twin Oaks in attendance. And the reason that these folks showed up is because the Twin Oaks Civic Association had a meeting on January the 7th to discuss this Twin Oaks Neighborhood Preservation and Enhancement Plan. This plan was tabled in October, and we were supposed to gather. I was under the impression that we were going to gather during tonight's meeting to further discuss this, and had put out information to the residents on the 7th that they show up so that they could give their input, suggestions, or whatever. I subsequently found out that there is a town hall that is being proposed, yet I wasn't briefed on it. So I'd like to pose this to our township manager to give some explanation as to why a town hall is being proposed in lieu of further discussion on the draft.
Is this one? Okay. So, as everybody here, I'm sure knows, the township went through the Heart and Soul Community Planning program over the past couple of years. And the intention of the Community Heart and Soul Planning program was to bring the community together and to bring them to be part of the conversation when plans are set out for activities throughout the community. So what we took from the Planning Commission seemed like more of like an adversarial situation that we're not really looking to get into. We want to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table and everybody's opinion is heard. So we felt that the next most reasonable thing to do with this would be to send out a letter to all the residents of Twin Oaks, inviting them to a town hall meeting at the 452 building, where we bring in all the planners who worked on this so they can go over the various elements and as to the why behind what they brought out of it. We also thought that would be a good opportunity to bring the community surveys that we sent out that were responded to by about half the residents, as well as the board that was done at the Juneteenth event, where we took feedback on the different items there too. So we thought that would be a good way to have a conversation and to get any concerns anybody might have, any further ideas, vet the plan to see if an option in there covers it or if something else could be included before we brought it back to the Planning Commission, because this is really the next step. It's like the last step before it goes to the Board of Commissioners. So, at this point, it's really hard to make amendments after a Planning Commission on a plan like this. So we don't want to go in front of the Planning Commission and then, the expectation is that item goes to the board from there. So we thought the town hall setting would be a better way to do it. We did meet with all the planners. Since that night, we've also done one of these planning sessions with the Boothwyn Heights neighborhood. That's the area where the high school is located, Willowbrook Shopping Center, Willowbrook Apartments, Boothwyn Heights. What do they call that? Is that Willowbrook 1, I think, is over there. And so that area there, and we completed the first couple steps, starting with the core values of the Heart and Soul plans. We did the surveying, reaching out via the surveys, and then we did the town walk with the planners, which I know has been brought up a couple times, that when the planners walked through the community, they didn't really engage and knock on anybody's doors or engage. That was really kind of try to get like an outsider's perspective on the quality of the infrastructure. So what we were doing is having them walk around and say, what's the condition? What do you grade the condition of the sidewalk? What do you, one thing that was brought up in the Twin Oaks community a lot was, what do you grade like shade, direct sunlight? There's a lot of direct sunlight, some things like that. So the intention is to get, what the people want and what the planners say are like best practices, mesh them all together and come up with this plan of action of ways that we can make improvements in all the communities throughout Upper Chichester. Because as I mentioned earlier today, our comprehensive plan was last done in 2005. And when we sat down and said, are we going to do another comprehensive plan? Well, most municipalities adopt comprehensive plans and then never act on them because they're these big, heavy lifts with very large multi-million-dollar projects that are very difficult to get going. So we said we're going to break them down into these smaller planning sessions, try to pick off improvements that we can make with our our general fund budget or grants that we know are available to us and build off of that. So if instead of a 15-year plan, we do a 5-year plan with 15-year goals to look at when we come back to the table. So that, in a nutshell, we did not think it was at a point where the public seemed like they were interested in that plan. And we didn't want to just go ahead and adopt something or get it back to this level with something that's not acceptable by the public. We wanted to take it back. You guys are the residents. You guys live here. We want to make sure that everything makes sense, right?
So just curious, George, in reading this, the survey that was put out was 175 surveys, I'm sorry. And it yielded 50 responses. I would think that you would want to get a bit more than 1/3 or a little less than 1/3 in terms of adequate responses. If you're going to have a really good survey that you're going to base quite a bit of material off of. Also, I noticed that there's 3 enhancement plans. 2 are still in draft form. This one has been changed to the town hall. Is that correct?
Not following.
Okay, so the correspondence I got from you earlier in the week showed that in parentheses you had the other 2 still in draft.
Yeah, so right now, so we have a plan, we'll call it a planning department. We use an outsourced planner. So the 3 activities that he's currently working on for us is the Boothwyn, I'm sorry, not the Boothwyn tab, the Twin Oaks plan, right? Which is the next phase of that is going to be going to the town hall. We've completed steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the Boothwyn Heights plan. The next step for that is to get that back to circulated to our work group to edit prior to going to a town hall. So the next step for that after the edit will be the town hall. And then we've been working on a rewrite of the Boothwyn Town Center zoning plan. That's a recommendation that came out of the Boothwyn Town Center plan. That is at a point now where we need to circulate that among our professionals as well. Then that'll go to probably a series of town hall plans meetings, because that is like changing a law. So when we change that zoning, we're changing a law that tells people what is acceptable use of properties. So that's one of those ones where that's like the plans are, hey, we're going to attempt to do this, but when we pass that, that's a law on a property. So my best guess would be that we'll try to do 2 to 3 town hall sessions of that before that would come to the planning commission.
Let me just try to supplement what I just thought I heard, and then Greg, you can follow up if it doesn't fit with what you heard, that the proposal to have a town hall is an opportunity to have more of the people represented, an opportunity to represent your any concerns you have, but to totally hear what the plan's all about and what the recommendations are, and for you to comment in. From that, you will then have the planner revise, update, or whatever to present a draft, which will then be presented to the planning commission. And that misstep, I'm going to call it a misstep, that we didn't do the first time around, the township didn't do the first time around, you're going to include as part of the process in the future plans, the small mini plans that we're talking about. So part of the process will be to draft the plan, take the plan, hold a town hall. After the town hall, have a redraft or relook, an update, and then bring it to the planning commission. So what I heard was they're going to supplement the town hall and the information from the town hall before drafting a plan and bringing it back to us. And in the future, they're not going to make the mistake of not having a town hall before they draft the final plan to come here.
Yeah, we felt the overall from that planning meeting, right? So we're doing this new style of planning through these small, quicker design charrettes, but a whole bunch of professionals in, grab value statements from a couple of years worth of outreach, communicate. That's like a very foreign to what you would typically see from a municipality developing a plan. So the overwhelming feedback from that first planning commission was, hey, we need to have one more, at least pulse on one more direct outreach to the community to get direct feedback on the plan before we take it to this next step. So we looked at that and we said that was a learning moment for us, right? We thought this process, it checked all the boxes when you go through and you look at it from like a standard, this is how municipalities do planning kind of thing. But the overwhelming, we heard that it wasn't enough. So we don't want to we want it to be a plan that everybody works together, not something that's adversarial, that's the township's making me, pushing this on us. So we thought that would be the best way, is to have the town hall meeting, get everybody in there, try to talk to everybody. And look, honestly, we're probably going to look at it at that point too. And if we don't have a great turnout from the town hall plan, what's the next step? Maybe we need to engage the Civic Association to assist us to get, more information. So it's kind of a learning curve to do it this way.
Several points. First of all, nothing about what we do here is adversarial. These residents have been here since the founding of these neighborhoods. If you go in and you knock on doors and you talk to these folks, they've been here since the existence, the very existence. So getting to the draft, you actually have something decent to work on. This actually is a good piece of work. It just needs to have a bit more input from the neighbors. And some of the things that it's a shame that either yourself or Nicole couldn't have been at that meeting on the 7th, but there were many constructive inputs, suggestions. And we're not asking for, we're not asking for the solar system. We're just asking for certain things that these residents have lived with for decades to be addressed. And if you can't, then maybe there's a plan that can come up further down the line where we can get the kind of funding to address some of those enhancements that really would make a difference. One example is the CSX operation. The neighbors have been living with that noise for all their lives. And at some point, that needs to be addressed. And when you come forth with a preservation enhancement plan that doesn't include or even speak in that direction, then, what is it? So that's just some of the things I want to get on the record.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those are the types of things we can add in and maybe even speak to. So like the conversation on the site was, look, we've got some limiting factors. On one side of the neighborhood, we have I-95, right? We are surrounded by a pipeline, car depot behind, and a rail, the railroad right there. So these are some factors. So, things that were brought up were like with the general fund budget now, what could we do to affect sound? Well, we could work on tree planting, right? That could be a way that we could enhance the area by planting more trees, right? So it was kind of looking at those small, like, how do you mitigate some of it, right, when there's big problems? Because candidly, we've gone toe to toe with CSX, and I mean we're involved right now with the PennDOT project on 322 with CSX, and they're regulated at a much higher level of government than we have the capacity to handle. But that being said, those are all the things that I would hope come up at the town hall meeting so that we can task the planners, because they're the paid professionals. I'm not a planner. I don't have a planning degree. I have no background in planning. I'm fascinated by it, but I'm in no way a planner. But those are the problems and the questions and the scenarios that we need to task the planners with and say, give us the unique solutions to these problems that we face on a daily basis.
Anything else? Okay, with that, I have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Approved. Motion carried. We're done. Go Eagles.